chorus. It's harder for you and it's harder for me to keep holding on to something I see not being worth my devotion and time. Difficult people lead beautiful lives. Yeah.
We were actually the first family to own this property since it was given by King's Grant that wasn't part of the original family. This was all part of a 6,000 acre piece of property, and then gradually, got broken down smaller and smaller pieces. And then when we bought it in 2004, like I said, we were the first group that was not part of the original family to have it handed down. The first year or two we were here, we had some backyard chickens, and what we ended up doing was we invited some folks up and we had just a cookout, and we cooked a couple of our chickens that we had raised. Several people that were there that day said, we've never had chicken that tasted like that. And so they said, would you raise a few for us for next year for our freezer? And so we thought, we're raising them for us. Might as well raise a few for some other families too. And that's literally how we got into it. Most farmers want to do what they're doing better. A lot of them just don't know how necessarily. So I see regenerative as, again, the journey that you're talking about. And that journey really starts with the farmer understanding that they can do things a little bit better. I feel like one of the biggest things that farmers have been missing is thinking more about carbon and how carbon cycles through the system. Larger conventional farmers that I've worked with over the last 20 years are not cycling carbon appropriately. If the carbon's not cycling properly, then the biology is suffering, the microbes are suffering. And if the microbes are suffering, or if they're not there, then the crop's gonna be suffering. What I really like to see is a farmer that's engaged in trying to learn more about how their systems work. Because none of us are doing it 100% right. Like a lot of sort of rock star farmers these days say, if you're not failing, you're not farming. My thing is, we're going through a paradigm shift right now. Farmers and agencies and institutions are really starting to see a little broader, I think, in terms of soil health, and particularly when it comes to economic resilience. A lot of farmers are just now starting to understand to diversify your crops and diversify your rotations and diversify your soil microbes. Why aren't we telling them to diversify their markets? Anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 chickens on farm every year. And when you process a chicken, you've got a lot of waste product, what the industry calls offal. Well, that's carbon. One of the endeavors that we've tried to do over the last 20 years is really understand how to cycle our carbon better. And when we process all those birds, we've got all this nitrogen component that needs to be composted. It's begging to be composted. So we utilize leaves or wood chips, and we compost all that material in what I call my compost castle. And I layer that in a sort of a lasagna style composting is what the permaculture folks call it. And a lot of people say, well, you can't compost meat products. The reason that the experts tell you not to do that is mainly because most people, especially if you're in town, they're not using enough carbon. Right. To truly compost, you really need a 10-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. We don't have all the answers. And that we're still learning so much about. We think we know, we think we've got agriculture and farming figured out, but we really don't. We're still learning so much about it. Mother Nature knows how to do that much better than we do. So usually it's best for us to kind of stand aside and watch what the natural systems do and then try to mimic that as much as possible. And in my experience, the farmers that I've worked with over the last 20 years, the most successful ones are the ones that do that.